dance between the branches. You hear the unmistakable sound of something massive crashing through the underbrush. But this isn't just any creature stalking through the woods. What approaches is a hut balanced on chicken legs, spinning wildly as it searches for its next visitor. Inside sits one of folklore's most terrifying and fascinating figures, a being who has haunted Slavic imaginations for over 1,000 years. Today we're diving deep into the complete history of Baba Yaga, the iron-toothed witch whose very name strikes fear into hearts across Eastern Europe. The story of Baba Yaga begins in the mists of pre-Christian Slavic culture, where the boundaries between the living world and the realm of spirits were thin and constantly shifting. Long before Christianity spread across the Slavic lands, ancient tribes told stories around flickering fires of a powerful female entity who controlled the passage between worlds. These early tales weren't written down, passed instead from generation to generation through oral tradition, each storyteller adding their own flourishes to an already rich tapestry of myth and legend. Archaeological evidence suggests that the roots of Baba Yaga stretch back to the Proto-Slavic period, somewhere between the 5th and 7th centuries. During this time, Slavic peoples were developing their distinct cultural identity, and their mythology reflected a deep connection to the natural world. Forests were sacred spaces, places where supernatural beings dwelled and where mortals could encounter forces beyond their comprehension. The figure who would eventually become known as Baba Yaga emerged from this primordial landscape as a guardian of thresholds, a being who existed at the crossroads between life and death, knowledge and ignorance, civilization and wilderness. The earliest written references to Baba Yaga appear in Russian manuscripts from the 18th century, but scholars believe these represent much older oral traditions, finally being committed to paper. These early texts describe her as a wild woman of the forest, sometimes helpful, sometimes malevolent, always unpredictable. Her name itself offers clues to her ancient origins. The word Baba simply means grandmother or old woman in many Slavic languages, while Yaga remains more mysterious. Some linguists connect it to ancient words for serpent or horror, while others suggest it relates to terms for anger or fury. What makes Baba Yaga truly unique among mythological figures is her remarkable consistency across different Slavic cultures, despite the vast geographical distances involved. From Russia to Poland, from Ukraine to Bulgaria, variations of her story appear with striking similarities. This widespread distribution suggests that her origins predate the major migrations and political divisions that would later separate Slavic peoples into distinct nations. She represents something fundamental to the Slavic worldview, a shared understanding of how dangerous knowledge is acquired and how wisdom often comes at a terrible price. The physical description of Baba Yaga has remained remarkably consistent throughout centuries of storytelling. She appears as an ancient crone with wild, unkempt hair that flows like smoke around her gaunt frame. Her most distinctive feature is her iron teeth, described as rusted and sharp, capable of devouring human flesh with ease. Her nose is often depicted as hooked and oversized, sometimes so long that it scrapes against the ceiling of her hut when she moves. Her fingers end in long, yellowed claws, and her eyes glow with an otherworldly light that can see through deception and pierce the veils between dimensions. But perhaps the most famous aspect of Baba Yaga is her extraordinary dwelling. Her hut stands on massive chicken legs that allow it to move through the forest at will. The legs are described as scaly and powerful, capable of carrying the structure at incredible speeds through the densest woods. The hut itself is usually depicted as small and cramped from the outside, yet somehow spacious enough inside to accommodate Baba Yaga's various magical implements and the occasional visitor. The entrance faces away from approaching travelers, and the hut will only turn around when the correct magical phrase is spoken. The chicken legs aren't merely a whimsical detail, but carry deep symbolic significance in Slavic mythology. Chickens were associated with the underworld and the realm of the dead in ancient Slavic belief systems. The legs represent Baba Yaga's connection to death and her ability to traverse the boundaries between worlds. When the hut walks through the forest, it's said to leave no tracks, moving like a spirit through the material world, while remaining anchored to supernatural realms. Inside her mobile dwelling, Baba Yaga possesses an array of magical implements that speak to her role as both destroyer and creator. Her mortar and pestle aren't just tools for grinding herbs and bones. They serve as her primary means of transportation when she needs to travel beyond her walking hut. She sits in the oversized mortar while using the pestle as both rudder and propulsion, flying through the air at tremendous speeds. As she travels, she sweeps away her tracks with a broom made from birch twigs, ensuring that mortals cannot follow her path back to otherworldly realms. The fence surrounding her hut tells its own grim story. Made from human bones and topped with skulls whose empty sockets glow with supernatural fire, this barrier serves as both warning and protection. Each skull represents a previous visitor who failed to meet Baba Yaga's standards or who tried to deceive her. The bone fence isn't just decorative, it actively guards against unwanted intrusions and serves as a testament to the witch's power over life and death. Baba Yaga's role in Slavic folklore extends far beyond simple antagonist or helper figure. She serves as a complex mediator between opposing forces, embodying contradictions that reflect the complicated relationship between humanity and the unknown. In some stories, she appears as a murderous cannibal who delights in cooking and eating lost travelers, particularly children who wander too far from home. These tales served practical purposes, warning young people about the dangers of straying from familiar paths and venturing unprepared into wild places. Yet, in other stories, Baba Yaga becomes an unlikely ally, offering crucial assistance to heroes and heroines who approach her with respect and cunning. She possesses knowledge that cannot be found elsewhere, wisdom about the location of magical items, the weaknesses of supernatural enemies, or the secret paths through dangerous territories. However, this help never comes without cost or risk. Those who seek her aid must prove themselves worthy through tests of courage, intelligence, or moral character. The famous tale of Vasilisa the Beautiful illustrates this dual nature perfectly. When young Vasilisa is sent by her cruel stepfamily to fetch fire from Baba Yaga's hut, she faces almost certain death. The witch initially threatens to eat the girl, but ultimately becomes her benefactor after Vasilisa demonstrates courage, wisdom, and proper respect for supernatural authority. Baba Yaga provides not just the requested fire, but a magical skull that will ultimately destroy Vasilisa's tormentors. This story demonstrates how Baba Yaga rewards those who face their fears with appropriate preparation and genuine need. The relationship between Baba Yaga and children deserves special attention, as it reveals much about her function in Slavic culture. While she's often portrayed as a child-eating monster, careful analysis of the stories reveals a more nuanced pattern. The children who fall victim to Baba Yaga are typically those who are disobedient, disrespectful, or unprepared for the challenges they face. Meanwhile, children who show courage, cleverness, and proper respect for supernatural forces often receive her protection and assistance. This pattern suggests that Baba Yaga serves as an agent of moral education, a figure who teaches important lessons about survival, respect, and the consequences of poor choices. In a harsh world where children needed to learn quickly how to navigate both natural and supernatural dangers, stories about Baba Yaga provided crucial instruction disguised as entertainment. The witch became a way for adults to communicate complex ideas about power, wisdom, and the price of knowledge to younger generations. The geographical variations in Baba Yaga stories reveal how different Slavic cultures adapted her figure to their specific needs and environments. In Russian folklore, she often appears as a solitary figure dwelling in the deepest parts of the taiga, reflecting the vast wilderness that dominated much of Russian territory. Ukrainian stories sometimes present her as one of three sisters, each controlling different aspects of time or natural forces. Polish traditions occasionally depict her as more connected to household magic and domestic mysteries rather than purely wilderness-based powers. These variations don't represent contradictions, but rather demonstrate the flexibility of mythological figures to adapt to local conditions while maintaining their essential characteristics. Baba Yaga could be simultaneously the guardian of ancient forests, the keeper of household secrets, and the judge of moral character because she represented something fundamental about the relationship between human society and the forces beyond human control. The role of transformation in Baba Yaga stories cannot be overlooked. Many tales involve characters who must undergo significant changes to survive their encounters with the witch. These transformations aren't merely physical, but represent deeper psychological and spiritual developments. Heroes and heroines who successfully navigate their relationships with Baba Yaga emerge as fundamentally different people, having gained wisdom, power, or insight that transforms their understanding of themselves and their world. This transformative aspect connects Baba Yaga to broader patterns in world mythology, where supernatural figures serve as catalysts for human development. Like the Greek Sphinx or the Celtic Banshee, she represents forces that challenge human assumptions and force growth through adversity. Her iron teeth don't just threaten physical destruction, but symbolize the painful process of breaking down old ways of thinking to make room for new understanding. The relationship between Baba Yaga and death is complex and multifaceted. While she's certainly associated with killing and the realm of the dead, she doesn't function simply as a death goddess or harbinger of doom. Instead, she represents the necessary relationship between death and life, the way that endings make new beginnings possible. Her bone fence marks not just the boundary of her territory, but the threshold between different states of being. In many stories, characters must symbolically die and be reborn through their encounters with Baba Yaga. They enter her realm as one type of person and emerge as another, having shed old limitations or fears. This pattern reflects ancient initiation rites where individuals underwent ceremonial deaths and resurrections to mark important transitions in their lives. Baba Yaga serves as the guide and guardian of these transformative processes, ensuring that those who seek change are prepared to pay the necessary price. The witch's relationship with time adds another layer to her complexity. Some stories suggest that she exists outside normal temporal boundaries, able to see past, present, and future simultaneously. Her hut moves not just through space, but through different moments, allowing her to appear when needed, regardless of conventional chronology. This temporal flexibility makes her an ideal figure for stories that need to connect different time periods or explain how ancient wisdom reaches contemporary problems. The seasonal associations of Baba Yaga reveal her connection to natural cycles and the agricultural calendar that dominated Slavic life for centuries. She's most commonly associated with winter and autumn, the seasons of death and dormancy when nature retreats underground to prepare for eventual renewal. Her iron teeth and bone fence reflect the harsh realities of winter survival, while her knowledge of hidden paths and secret resources represents the wisdom needed to navigate difficult periods. Yet, Baba Yaga also appears in spring and summer stories, often as a figure who controls the transition between seasons. She might hold winter captive in her hut, or possess the key to unlocking spring's return. These stories reflect the precarious relationship between human communities and natural forces. The understanding that survival depended on maintaining proper relationships with supernatural powers that controlled essential resources. The evolution of Baba Yaga stories throughout history reflects broader changes in Slavic society and worldview. As Christianity spread through Slavic territories, her stories adapted to incorporate new religious elements while maintaining their essential characteristics. Sometimes she becomes explicitly demonic, aligned with Christian concepts of evil and temptation. In other adaptations, she takes on qualities that parallel Christian saints or martyrs, particularly in her role as a guardian of sacred knowledge. The Soviet period brought its own changes to Baba Yaga folklore. State-sponsored attempts to suppress or reinterpret traditional stories led to sanitized versions where her more frightening aspects were downplayed in favor of her helpful qualities. Children's literature from this period often presented her as merely eccentric rather than genuinely dangerous, reflecting broader attempts to rationalize folklore and eliminate elements deemed superstitious or backward. However, the underground preservation of traditional stories ensured that more complete versions of Baba Yaga tales survived the Soviet era largely intact. Folk singers, storytellers, and rural communities maintained the full complexity of her character, passing down stories that retained their original power and meaning despite official disapproval. This preservation demonstrates the deep cultural significance of Baba Yaga and the impossibility of completely suppressing mythological figures that serve essential psychological and social functions. Modern interpretations of Baba Yaga have exploded across various media, from literature and film to video games and graphic novels. These contemporary treatments often struggle with her essential ambiguity, tending to cast her either as purely evil antagonist or misunderstood wise woman. While some modern adaptations successfully capture her complexity, others flatten her into more familiar archetypal patterns that lose much of her unique power. The psychological interpretation of Baba Yaga has become increasingly sophisticated as scholars apply modern analytical tools to traditional stories. Jungian psychologists see her as a representation of the shadow archetype, the dangerous but necessary aspects of the psyche that must be integrated for psychological wholeness. Feminist scholars have reclaimed her as a powerful female figure who operates outside patriarchal structures, wielding authority through knowledge and supernatural power rather than traditional feminine roles. Environmental interpretations focus on her role as guardian of wilderness and natural boundaries, seeing her stories as early expressions of ecological wisdom. From this perspective, Baba Yaga represents the fierce protection that wild spaces require from human encroachment and exploitation. Her tests and challenges become ways of determining whether humans are prepared to enter natural spaces with appropriate respect and understanding. The linguistic analysis of Baba Yaga stories reveals sophisticated storytelling techniques that maximize psychological impact while preserving cultural information across generations. The repetitive elements, formulaic phrases, and rhythmic patterns found in traditional tellings served mnemonic functions that aided memorization, while creating hypnotic effects that enhance the story's emotional power. These techniques demonstrate the sophisticated understanding of human psychology that traditional storytellers possessed, even without formal training in such matters. Contemporary folklorists continue to discover new layers of meaning in Baba Yaga stories, finding connections to astronomical observations, historical events, and social structures that weren't immediately obvious to earlier researchers. The witch's ability to fly through the sky has been connected to observations of aurora borealis and other atmospheric phenomena common in northern Slavic territories. Her control over fire and her association with skulls may preserve memories of ancient funeral practices and beliefs about the afterlife. The international influence of Baba Yaga extends far beyond Slavic cultures, as her stories have been translated and adapted around the world. Each culture that encounters her tends to emphasize different aspects of her character, revealing how universal themes can be expressed through culturally specific symbols and narratives. Her popularity in contemporary fantasy literature and media demonstrates the continued relevance of the psychological and spiritual challenges she represents. The academic study of Baba Yaga has contributed significantly to broader understanding of folklore, mythology, and cultural transmission. Her stories provide excellent examples of how traditional narratives encode complex information about survival, social relationships, and spiritual development in memorable and emotionally compelling forms. The consistency of her character across vast geographical and temporal distances offers insights into the fundamental structures of human storytelling and the universal psychological needs that folklore serves. As we conclude this journey through the rich history of Baba Yaga, we can see that she represents far more than a simple folktale character. She embodies fundamental human experiences of fear, transformation, and the quest for wisdom that transcends specific cultural boundaries while remaining deeply rooted in Slavic tradition. Her iron teeth and chicken-legged hut have become iconic symbols that continue to capture imaginations and inspire new stories centuries after her first appearance in oral tradition. The enduring power of Baba Yaga lies in her refusal to be easily categorized or dismissed. She remains genuinely dangerous even when helpful, genuinely wise even when terrifying. This complexity mirrors the ambiguous nature of real wisdom and genuine transformation, which rarely come without risk or cost. In our contemporary world, where we often seek simple answers to complex questions, Baba Yaga reminds us that the most valuable knowledge frequently requires us to venture into uncomfortable territories and face aspects of ourselves and our world that we would prefer to avoid. Her stories continue to offer guidance for navigating uncertainty, respect for forces beyond our control, and understanding that true wisdom comes not from avoiding challenges, but from meeting them with courage, preparation, and appropriate humility. Whether encountered in ancient forests or modern adaptations, Baba Yaga remains a powerful reminder that the most important journeys often require us to leave familiar paths and trust in our ability to face whatever waits beyond the next turn.